And at last, the festival finale. And it should be another amazing musical event.
Well, you're right. First of all, it is a culmination of Brahms' cycle with his glorious Fourth Symphony. I have noticed repeating myself with the adjectives for Brahms.
But appropriately so.
So I'm sorry about this, just a useless language here, because the music of Brahms is undescribable, and his Fourth Symphony is one and only. I just cannot say or feel enough of that piece. But the other feature is appearance of Lynn Harrell,
Yes.
who is going to play Dvorak's cello concerto. So you could clearly say that this program altogether is a summit.
It is a summit in genre and obviously musical performance with Lynn Harrell as the soloist. But the Dvorak, although it bears the name concerto, is certainly one of the most symphonic concerti ever written.
Yes. We could always say that the pianists are blessed with a great number and variety of concertos, and so are the violinists. The cello repertoire is much smaller, to which cello players always say, but we have Dvorak cello concerto and you don't. And that is correct. It always will remain a subject of very bitter envy of all violinists and pianists, because it is such a glorious piece of music.
And in the third installment of the Brahms Fest, we have Brahms and Schumann, who obviously were very close personally and musically. But in the festival finale, we have another very important relationship reflected, and that is the relationship between Brahms and Dvorak.
And Dvorak, great friends, and Brahms, of course, was great supporter of Dvorak and introduced him to publisher and edit his works too. So that is a friendship which is in a way unusual, but a great friendship of two great composers.
And having done the last three symphonies of Dvorak last summer, one's always reminded that Dvorak not only received support from Brahms, but received, I think, inspiration.
Oh, absolutely.
And inspiration in the sense of almost a challenge to elevate what he did as a composer symphonically. And although he had plenty of his own talent and ingenuity, and really seems to have never written a bad piece, this link between Brahms and Dvorak was quite important, I think, for both composers, particularly Dvorak. And the cello concerto, of course, not only features the cello soloist, but features the orchestra and solo instruments in wonderful ways too.
In a very powerful way.
Yes.
I have to say, all the orchestral tutis are just like another symphony of Dvorak.
Absolutely. Would you agree with the assessment that of the four symphonies of Brahms, the fourth is perhaps the most austere and reflective of the mature Brahms? The structure of it, his choice of harmony, it almost out of the four, to me, links to the musical past more than any of the others.
Well, it is a synthesis. It is what we call the last word. It is last word of a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a culmination, and the synthesis, I like the word synthesis because of all the elements of preceding developments of cultures, going all the way back to Palestrina and Heinrich Schütz,
Yes.
through the works of great Handel and Bach, and of course Viennese school with Beethoven too,
Yes.
but also with development of romantic music of Schubert and Robert Schumann.
Well, and from the very first notes, it has this sort of reflective, almost sentimental quality with the constant sort of interchange in the melody of statement and question and answer. It's very moving. And then the second movement always seems to me almost like something from the very distant, almost like the time of the Meistersingers, some kind of procession from the great distant past.
I call the harmonical modal scope of second movement archaic.
Archaic, absolutely.
Archaic.
It's a modal piece.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then the devilish, third movement, my God!
The only Brahms symphony movement to use percussion of any kind,
Right.
which is the triangle, and it's
Yeah.
perfectly chosen for the occasion.
Very appropriate, yes. And then, of course, Passacaglia is beyond words.
The
To
Passa-
choose, yes, to
the
choose
Passacaglia,
last movement is a Passacaglia.
it's one of the oldest musical devices. Many composers from way before the time of Bach used this. It was a very popular thing in the early Baroque for solo violin pieces because a Passacaglia is basically a harmonic progression that is repeated with variations above it. And Brahms, of course, is one of the greatest variation composers who ever lived. And it has the type of structure that you see in something like Bach's Goldberg variations.
Well, but in addition to that, he was able to combine variations in a structure of large symphonic movement
Yes.
with the exposition and the middle section and definitely recapitulation and coda.
Yes.
So there are elements of symphonic form, but in a style of Passacaglia variations. Just astonishing writing.
And his ability, for instance, before that recapitulation, to just bring things into such intense focus with the flute solo and just the contrast. I was thinking about that scherzo and how necessary it is.
Yeah.
And of course, Brahms knew that, and between the austerity of the second movement and the sort of rigid adherence to structure of the last movement, that scherzo couldn't be more needed or wonderful.
Yes, well, it's a release too.
Yes, absolutely.
There is another interesting connection between those two great works, and that is a key. B and E.
Minor.
Yeah, of course, we don't really talk in our pre-concert talks about keys, but I have to stress that for us creators of programs, the relationship of keys are extremely important because it provides additional unseen and unregistered unity to the whole evening experience. And here we have this unity like a dominant and tonic between the key of the cello concerto and the key of the symphony.
Like a good meal, where everything sort of works around a common set of ingredients.
That's
and
right.
Flows nicely from one thing to the next.
Exactly. And finally, we would like to mention our executive director of our production.
And cinematographer, producer, set designer,
Yes.
and camera operator.
Working hard behind the scene, and that is Christian Feigart.
And PMF player.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Kristen,
Thank you, Christian.
and thank you for listening.